All right, so good morning, everyone, and welcome to the Immersion Day event with Fingerpaint Marketing. My name is Danielle, and I am an Associate Director in the Career Development Center here at St. Joe's. And I am going to actually pass it off right away to Brianna Balfour, who is a professional with Fingerpaint Marketing, who is going to welcome you to the event as well.
Great. Hi, everyone. Thanks for being here today with us. We're excited to have a super virtual, engaging conversation with you guys. So we'll get started. First, we're going to hear from Gigi. She is on our People and Culture team, which is basically like our HR team here at Fingerpaint. She'll go over the company overview and discuss some career opportunities with Fingerpaint. And then we'll move into introducing all of us and then into a Q&A. And a part of that conversation, you can submit anything into the chat box that you want to ask and so on. And we will work to answer those questions as best as we can.
All right. Hi, everybody. Like Brianna said, I am on the People and Culture team. I am just going to share my screen here just to give you a little introduction to Fingerpaint and kind of what we do. So thank you for joining us today. We're so excited to be here. So a little bit about us. We are an independently owned pharmaceutical advertising agency. So we're a full service health and wellness agency. So we work with brands within the healthcare industry to help them market their products or services from start to finish. So we do everything in-house, starting from creative concepting all the way down to any digital or print ads or commercials. So really any and every marketing collateral that you can think of. But we are a very people first type of organization. We're rooted in empathy. I'm sure, as you know, the advertising industry can be a pretty fast paced and heavy volume kind of environment. But we still like to make sure that the people we bring on board are just kind of empathetic to their fellow coworkers and do everything with people in mind first. So we've got no titles at this organization, and that's essentially to give everyone an equal seat at the table. You know, whether you're the most junior person in the room to the most senior person, everyone has a voice, and a good idea is a good idea, and it's as simple as that. So we've got a little over 500 people at this point. We've got a couple of locations across the country. We've got an office in Saratoga Springs, New York, Cedar Knolls, New Jersey, Phoenix, Arizona, Conshohocken, Pennsylvania, and we also recently acquired offices in the San Diego and San Francisco area. So we're now in California, which is pretty exciting because we've been growing pretty quickly. We hired a little over 230-ish people since January and are on board to hire maybe another 40 before the end of the year. So it's a pretty exciting time for us. Okay, so philanthropy is pretty huge. Obviously, before COVID, things were different. We were able to contribute hands-on. After COVID, we've kind of just been donating as much as we can. We contribute to over 100 nonprofits annually. We've spent a little over 5,000 hours of pro bono services in 2019 and since then. And 100% of our employees do participate in philanthropy. So sometimes we'll have meetings and we'll have a dashboard that we can kind of choose which philanthropic effort we want to contribute to. So we vote on that. So everyone does have a say in where our philanthropic efforts are shared. Okay, so all of our core capabilities under one roof. We do, like I said, we do everything in-house. So we do the strategy, we do the creative concepting for the campaigns, we handle the media, and we also do the digital aspects. And we also have a couple of specialized agencies that we work with as well that are a part of the Fingerpaint family. So we have 1798 over in California, and they are our market experts. So essentially the consultants who know the landscape inside and out. We've also got Photo 51, who are our strategic consultants and are dabbling in some therapies, including cell and gene therapy, which is the future. So it's very exciting stuff. Okay, so a little bit about our culture. Like I mentioned at the beginning, we are a very people-first culture. These are a couple of our benefits. We do have 360 reviews. So we have annual performance reviews where you talk about your manager and your manager talks about your performance. So it's very two-sided. We have something called Fingerpaint University, where we offer continuing education. We do give people a little insight into what the pharmaceutical advertising world is like. We have agency overviews and medical overviews. So it helps people transition into the healthcare advertising world. We've got flexible time off. So, essentially that is as it sounds. It's not like that 2 weeks paid vacation for the year and that's it. It really allows you to take off as needed or as wanted, and just gives people a little bit more of that work-life balance. We've also got a 1 month paid sabbatical. So this one's pretty cool. After every 5 years of being at Fingerpaint, we offer employees an entire month of a paid sabbatical. So IT literally shuts down your email address and you're completely off the grid for a whole month, which is pretty exciting. We've got generous 401k investments. We've got student loan reimbursement plans. So we've got a lot of really exciting stuff. Okay, so our clients do consist of a mix of biopharmaceutical, medical device, and diagnostic manufacturers, as well as a few private equity and other life science investment-focused organizations. On the bottom of the slide, you can kind of see a couple of the campaigns that we've worked on, and you can look at those more in detail on our website. Okay, so I'm going to play a video, and I'm just going to ask you guys if you can hear it.
I mean, I always thought football killed my dad. Dad was never diagnosed with a concussion, but it was
Can you guys hear that?
Yeah, you're good.
just hit after hit after hit. He was already suffering from dementia in his 50s. So when he should have been enjoying his retirement, we were instead losing a little bit more of him every day. After he passed, I donated his brain to the Concussion Legacy Foundation and Boston Brain Bank. And when we got the results back, I wasn't surprised. Dad had stage 4 CTE. After that, I got involved with the foundation and learned about a study that showed over time, the risk of getting CTE from playing tackle football was as strong, if not stronger, than the risk of getting cancer from smoking. And that's how Tackle Can Wait got started.
How's everybody doing? We all right? Great job. You guys are doing good.
Tackle football is like smoking. The younger I start, the longer I'm exposed to danger. You wouldn't let me smoke. When should I start tackle?
And then all of a sudden, the campaign was everywhere.
Clearly struck a nerve with everyone here.
There's a new ad centered around
It reminds you of that. This is your brain on drugs.
The campaign was on every major national news network, including 3 roundtables on Fox News.
CTE is a very real thing.
Tackle Can Wait even got a shout out in the New Yorker on Super Bowl Sunday. So the conversation's still going. And we're continuing to support the campaign with banner ads, a website, and guerrilla tactics like this brochure that we took to Boston for the first of many hearings and state legislatures considering bills to ban tackle football for kids. The one in California is actually named after our campaign, the Tackle Can Wait bill. I know my dad would be really proud, and I know we're gonna get it done.
Yeah, so that was a video that we did pro bono based on someone in our office. So this was actually her father. And this was just to kind of raise awareness about CTE. And to date, it's still one of our most popular widespread campaigns. And it's pretty impactful.
I mean,
okay, so let's talk about a couple of our departments and career opportunities. So we've got an account management department that is kind of the client services, client facing. We've got project management. We've got a creative art and creative copy team. We've also got digital, brand, and medical strategies, and we have digital development. So we do have a lot of different opportunities. Like I said, we do everything in-house. So it's kind of vast, and the variety is pretty insane. So it's exciting. And I do also want to note that we will start sourcing for our internship program, our summer internship program, in a few months. So feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn or just keep up to date on our website. We will be looking for opportunities and roles across the board. So thank you guys. Do you have any questions?
No questions yet, Gigi, but we'll address them again at the end of the event.
Okay, sure. I'm gonna stop sharing here.
Okay, so I think I'm going to take the lead now. So thanks, Gigi. It's really great to be here with everyone today. And like mentioned before, definitely remember if you have any questions, just to put them in the chat, or we can wait until the end and we'll definitely take more questions then. So as mentioned before, my name is Emma Weber. I graduated from St. Joe's in 2021, so last May, with a degree in food marketing, and I was in the 5-year co-op program that they have there, which was awesome. At Fingerpaint, I am a project coordinator, and it'll be 2 months on November 13th. So I'm still pretty new here, but it is really great. So now I'm going to introduce my fellow panelists. So to the right of me, this is Brianna Belfour. She's from the class of 2014, received her degree in marketing with a minor in fine arts. At Fingerpaint, she is a media strategist, leading the media strategy capability in the Conshohocken office. And she's worked for Fingerpaint since May of 2020. And then we have Matt Kelly over here from the class of 2020. He received his degree in marketing and business intelligence and analytics. At Fingerpaint, he's a paid search and social strategist, working closely with the media team, but specializing in both paid research and social media. And he has been here since June of 2020. And then lastly, to my left, we have Madeline Ponticelli. She received her undergrad degree at St. Joe's with business intelligence with a minor in marketing in 2020. And then she went on to receive her Master of Science degree in business intelligence in 2021. At Fingerpaint, she works as an analyst with the digital strategy team and has been here since August of 2020. So now I'm going to start the discussion. We just have a few questions we're going to ask everyone. And then obviously, like I said, we can take questions at the end as well. So if you want to start with Maddie, tell us about yourself and briefly describe your current role at Fingerpaint, and we'll just go down the line.
Yeah, so like Emma said, I graduated with my undergrad degree in 2020, and then I started working for Fingerpaint the following August. I started in August 2020 on the digital strategy team. So my job is basically any brand that runs any type of major media campaign or paid search, social, or any type of like video content. Or we have another program here called Shift, where that has to do with like prescriptions and working with doctors and patients. So my job deals with any brand that's running any of those programs that has to do with all performance reporting. So whether it's weekly, monthly, or quarterly, my job is to report, develop reports, whether it's for new brands or maintain existing brands, and do all types of performance reporting so the clients that work with us know how their programs are doing and how we can better align with their goals. So that's what I do at Fingerpaint. And I also went to St. Joe's, like Emma said, for my master's degree. So I did the part-time MSBI program. So I did it all online. I started in June of 2020 and finished in May of 2021. So all during the pandemic, I would work during the day and then go to class at night. So just love St. Joe's so much. So yeah.
I can go next. Like I said, my name is Emma. So I was on the 5-year food marketing co-op program, which is obviously pretty random because now I'm at a pharmaceutical company, but definitely helped build my skill set. So I don't regret it at all. It was a great program. I graduated in 2021 and I started working in Fingerpaint in mid-September. So I've only been here about 2 months, and my title is a project coordinator. So I'm on the project management department. Specifically, I am assigned to Teva, which is a schizophrenic drug that's going to be launching in April. So I'm just, as a project coordinator, just helping to make sure that all the projects are being, submitted on time. Everything's getting submitted to the client. I run routes and I make sure that, the correct departments are looking at the correct documents and making sure we're following a timeline. I create timelines. So just the main liaison between all the marketing, documents and everything that we need to launch this brand in April. Brianna.
Okay. All right. So I'm the oldest one here. I have been with Fingerpaint for just about a year and a half, but previously I was at PHM, which is also a pharmaceutical focused marketing company or agency. So I was there for about 6 years working on AstraZeneca and Biogen businesses, learned a lot. But before that, I was marketing at St. Joe's. I did not necessarily know that I would end up in pharmaceutical marketing, which is a whole nother element to, working in advertising. I kind of like to say it's like a second learning curve when you're, getting your first job out of college, learning that pharma lingo and being in the mindset of a patient or an HCP is definitely a part of that. So it takes a lot of time. And I think my role is a lot different at Fingerpaint than it was at PHM, just being, involved with the creative agency or the creative team a lot more. So that's in-house here, which is something that I didn't experience previously. And Gigi's video really showcased that, drive for creative differentiation. So I feel like where media, as a media strategist, we kind of come into the picture is, all of that testing and creative concepting is, formulated, and that kind of market entry plan is delivered, but then we have to give it the right legs into market. So that's really where my role comes into play is, determining which channels, which programs, tactics will be the best to reach our patient audience or HCP, healthcare provider audience. And that's kind of a loaded statement. There's so many tactics and channels. And as you guys probably know, they're changing every single day with what we can and cannot do in terms of advertising with iOS updates, cookie tracking going away. So that's all the kind of stuff that we have to be really privy to and be really strategic, especially when we're trying to reach somebody in market about a sensitive disease state that they might be experiencing. So, you really have to put yourself in the shoes of that patient or healthcare provider and be very mindful of that conversation.
Cool. I can jump in next. So my name is Matt Kelly. As Emma had mentioned, I was a double major graduating in 2020 with marketing and business intelligence and analytics. So I joined Fingerpaint literally like 2 weeks after I graduated last June on the media team. So working closely with Brian, the rest of the media team, but specializing in paid search and social media. So those who might not know, paid search is basically the paid like text ads that show up on your Google and Bing search engines. So a lot of my role is involved with those kinds of ads for all of our pharmaceutical clients, similar to what Brie was saying for both patient-focused ads as well as healthcare-focused ads. And then the other half of my role is social media. So working across all of the major social media platforms, Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, Instagram, YouTube, all of those, both managing our organic social presences as well as our paid social presences as well. And again, across multiple pharmaceutical clients.
Okay, so our second question is about how we got to Fingerpaint. So how did you land your job at Fingerpaint? What role did networking play in finding the job, and what networking strategies did you use?
Yeah, so when I applied for Fingerpaint, like I said, I graduated in May. I knew I wanted to stay at St. Joe's another year to get my master's. So I feel like there's a lot of pressure when you're looking for a job, especially like also an internship, but definitely full time, that like you have to have something when you graduate. Like if you don't have a job in May, it's really stressful. And yeah, it can be stressful, but I'm glad that I kind of waited, started to figure out what I exactly wanted. So when I graduated in May, I knew that I definitely wanted to go back to school. So I kind of focused on that first. So I applied for Fingerpaint probably like mid-July. So I waited for after 2 months after I graduated to make sure I was all set with this class I were enrolled with for my master's program. And I applied in mid-July. I started working the first week of August. The networking tools I used, I had heard of Fingerpaint when I was at St. Joe's. I knew a couple of people that enjoyed their time when they were interning, but I really did a lot of my own research and reached out to people who I knew were working at St. Joe's or working at Fingerpaint that went to St. Joe's, like I knew Matt had worked at, was working at Fingerpaint. He started in June, and I was interviewing like the second half of July. So I reached out to him, and I asked what he thought of it, what he liked, any advice he would give. So just like leverage anyone that you might know in your LinkedIn network, or even people you went to classes with. But then when I was going through the interview process, the last interview I had was with someone who would be my manager, and he had also gone to St. Joe's, which was really nice. So there was like an immediate level of relatability, and it was a little less pressure because we could talk about things about St. Joe's and what he majored in. So that also helped. So I feel like focus on what you want to do first, and if that aligns with the company that you might be applying to, like Fingerpaint, then go through and reach out to people who are also working there or working in a related space that could connect you, so that your questions when you're looking to network are more like thought-provoking and like more intentional, rather than just like seeing people work at a company and reach out. Like I feel like focus on what you want to do first, which I knew I wanted to do analytics within pharmaceutical, and that's how I ended up here.
So for me, networking definitely got me this job at Fingerpaint. Like I had mentioned before, I was in the food marketing co-op program. So obviously when you're in the co-op program, you have, really quality internships, and you make a lot of connections that way. So I kind of went that route after graduation in last May. So I had a job May in a more of a food marketing role, but I had met a Fingerpaint rep at the fall 2020 career fair, so a year before I graduated. And I just remember, loving them, and they were kind of just always in the back of my head, even though I wasn't in pharma. I didn't really pursue that after I graduated. I never forgot Fingerpaint just because they have, such good benefits and people love the culture here. So from that aspect, it seemed exciting, but I just went in my food marketing, role, and then I couldn't stop thinking about it. I wasn't, loving my job in food marketing. So I reached out to the rep that I had connected with at the career fair, and just asked if there was any, openings in Conshohocken specifically, because I live in Manayunk still. So I definitely wanted something local, and they were really great about it. They said there was a few openings. So they got me connected with an interview and all of that. So in terms of strategies, I would just recommend, always taking notes. For like on the career fair, I had all of my Google Docs open and just taking notes on every single rep that I met. That way, when I reached out like a year later, I reached out in July or August, I had notes back from that interview in fall. So, or not interview, back from that connection in the fall. So just taking notes and making sure that, quality over quantity, you're not just talking to every single person that you meet, but you're actually having quality conversations. And that's definitely helped me get my role at Fingerpaint, just because if I didn't have a quality conversation and took notes and everything like that, I don't think they would have remembered me or, been so welcoming towards giving me an interview. So yeah, that's how I got my role at Fingerpaint.
I'm going to take it back a step further for my scenario, just because I did have a job before Fingerpaint coming out of school. So I think what I really leaned into was my internships sophomore and junior year. And I really figured out what I did and did not like. So that when I got to the point of graduating, I could kind of network a little bit better. So it actually was a friend's sister that really got me interested in that pharmaceutical side of marketing. So I kind of spent a lot of time on the phone with her, understanding exactly what that means. And I really leaned into that resource, and I, described things that I didn't like about my previous internships, and like what I would, really feel like I would be successful doing coming out of school, and like what my strengths were. Obviously understanding that, I wasn't going to be able to do exactly what I wanted to right away. So I really, networked in that way and was a referral at PHM. And then I think that really opened the door to so many opportunities, so many connections. It's such a busy environment. You're meeting multiple people a day. You're, talking to vendors such as WebMD, Healthline, and so on. There's just endless connections, and it's really what you make it. Building on top of that opens doors later. So that's actually how I ended up at Fingerpaint. My boss actually referred me here. So I just think it's very much so a small world in terms of pharmaceutical advertising. And if you love it, the possibilities are really endless.
Cool. Yeah, so I graduated in 2020, so that was obviously right when the pandemic was starting. So I would say like in the April, May timeframe, right before graduation, I was kind of in that spot where I was like, I don't really know what the future looks like for jobs. Like, is it going to be in person? Is it going to be online, et cetera? What I knew is that I wanted to work in digital marketing in some aspect. And I felt like that combined my two majors really well at St. Joe's. So I did some research. I found Fingerpaint. I think it was first on LinkedIn. And then I just went to their website, really like found like commonalities between my values and the Fingerpaint values. So I ended up applying for, I think, 2 roles on the Fingerpaint website, and the recruiter had reached out to me. Obviously, like again, like we like didn't know like if it would be in person, if it would be online, et cetera. But it ended up going really well. The recruiter that I met with was super helpful, really nice, and like kind of helped me hone in on like what I wanted to do. Because like I like told her, like obviously it was my first job after graduation. The only like experience I had was from my internships, and she really helped me kind of guide me to these positions. And everybody that I met during the interview process was awesome. So it kind of worked out in the end, and I ended up getting the job offer right around graduation. So really happy that I found Fingerpaint.
So the next question is going to be, since you've been at Fingerpaint, how have you established an internal professional network?
Yeah, so I think my role really lends itself to almost being forced to have to work with a lot of people, but it's great in the end. But I, being in a digital and analyst role, and like I said, I put together all of these different reports. It involves a lot of different teams, right? So I work with Matt a lot. I have to work with people on maybe like the medical team or different media teams, or you know, across even other digital strategists, people on account, and I work with project managers like Emma to talk about timing. So my role lends itself to having to work with like a lot of different people at once. So once you're able to kind of, and like Matt said, it was difficult in the beginning when I first started in August of 2020 because everyone was working from home, and it was really hard to like gain a rapport with people like all over Zoom, which I know is, you know, a little bit of the way of the world now, but we've gotten a little better now. We can come into the office. But at first it was really hard, and it was a tough spot to kind of like ask people for things or even get to learn things all remote for people you don't necessarily know at all. So I think that takes a little bit of work on your own end too. Like I think advice I would give, like moving forward, and if you know you're going into an internship or into a full-time job, if you want to create your own internal network, you have to do a lot of the work yourself because people are willing to give it to you, but you have to put yourself out there to get it. So going back to what I was saying, my job lends itself to having to work with a lot of different people on a daily basis. So I just try to work with people that, you know, I try to talk to people not only about work, but talk about things that are going on in life, and even like our Slack channels, like Slack is like our communication system. So we use that to talk about work and things, but we also talk about like what people are doing for the holidays, or even people will send pictures of their pets. So like it's important to have like a work fun balance, which I think that's what I liked most. Like even about St. Joe's, like everyone was such a community feel, and I feel like if you bring that energy to a job, you'll have an easier time creating an internal network because you're able to, you know, work when it's time to work, but also like have lunch with people and get to know everyone. So I kind of put that energy toward making my internal network, and it's worked out. So.
Yeah, I definitely want to echo pretty much everything that Maddie said. My role also lends itself to meeting a lot of people just because I have to be in touch with a lot of different departments to make sure like projects are running smoothly. So I'm forced to do it in that sense, but like she said, you do have to also force yourself to create that internal network with people that are like-minded. So we do have Slack, and you can like join different channels based on your interests. So having that work-life balance is definitely important, especially in pharma and in an agency, just because it can be really fast-paced. It can be really intense at times. So just making sure that you're having, you're building quality relationships on the side, along with being professional and everything. And it's also like the little things. It's obviously really hard because we're all virtual a lot of the time. But like go into your offices when you can. It definitely helps, like just being here today, and just meeting a few people in person. It makes the connection so much easier. And also on Zoom, there's like obviously little things you can do, ask questions when you don't know, the answer to a lot of stuff, just because that helps me obviously learn the pharma lingo, but also communicate with people. And also like putting on your cameras during Zooms, it definitely helps just because people are so visual. And I know we all have like those days where we're in sweatpants and stuff, and that's me like 9 times out of 10. But when I first joined Fingerpaint, I like forced myself to put my camera on the first month or so, just because it allows people to see your face, even if their camera's not on. Maybe they're making a connection at least, halfway. So just little things like that. And it's obviously unique to every person, but it is important to make sure that in the back of your head you are building an internal network, because it definitely helps your work-life balance for sure.
Yeah, and I again agree with everything those guys just covered off on. But I think the only thing additional I would add is just that when you're working on a project with somebody, no matter how small, I think word of mouth really goes a long way. So, if you're really attentive and really personable with, just one small project with somebody, that really like translates into other relationships. People start to hear, that you're really easy to work with. You like are able to, get a deliverable done and be resourceful and so on. So I kind of think, not taking those little projects for granted really helps build your network from a word of mouth standpoint. In addition to, having those more personable relationships, being able to turn off work every now and then does go a long way. We spend a lot of time together on a day-to-day basis. And I will say, like, an agency environment is a lot of fun. It's kind of that work hard, play hard environment. So I think that's, the mentality that we all have and can really, align with each other.
Yeah, so I feel like I agree with like all three of them and what they were saying, but I think just like overall, something great about Fingerpaint is that full service agency. So on a daily basis, I obviously talk with the rest of the paid search team, the rest of the social team, the media team that I'm a part of, but then I'm talking with the digital strategy team. I'm talking with project managers about timelines and all the projects that are being worked on. I'm talking with the account teams when they need to communicate something to the client. When I'm talking to the creative teams who are developing like the social media assets that we're about to set live. I'm talking to like the brand team to make sure that our media and search and social objectives are all aligned with like the brand goals. So I think that, like that's something that's really been beneficial. Like in my first job out of college is getting exposure to all of those different departments and like how everything kind of fits together in order to like have that deliverable for our clients. So I think that like that's just helped me kind of get to know so many people across the not only the Conshohocken office, but I've worked on brands in the Saratoga Springs office and the New Jersey office and the Phoenix office. So I've been able to not only meet people here, but also in the other offices as well. So I think just overall, like really put yourself out there. And as they said, like it is kind of hard at first when things are virtual. But like, again, doing those small things here and there will really help you make those connections and get to know people, not only on a professional level, but on a personal level as well.
Awesome. So the next question, I know we touched on a little bit, but we can go into a little more detail. What is your day-to-day work activity like at Fingerpaint, and how has this changed with the pandemic?
Yeah, so I've only worked at Fingerpaint during the pandemic, as same as Emma and Matt. So when we first started, it was, like I said, it was a little hard because it was all virtual, and it required a lot of your own energy to get to know people because you weren't like passing them in the office or seeing them in the lunchroom, things like that. So, but I think also I said this to someone else the other day, I think the fact that the pandemic happened while we were in school made it an easier transition to starting work online as well. I think if I had graduated in like 2018 or 2019 and had worked at a job for a year in person, like fully quote normal, and then gone fully online, I think I would have had a difficult time. But I think being able to balance like 5 classes and finishing out the semester, I think that made it a little easier to move to like a corporate position. And I think also like my day-to-day life requires a lot of balancing of different brands. So I think, you know, what separates an agency from regular corporation, if you might not know, is for if you work at like a typical corporation, you might work on the same project or work with the same people on the same project for, you know, most of your time at the job. Whereas at an agency, you know, I see it kind of similarly to being in school. Like you have 5 classes in school, you have different deadlines, you have different days of exams or quizzes. Well, working at an agency, at least in my role, is similar because, you know, I work across right now like 6 brands. So some of them require monthly reporting, some require quarterly, some do both, some do weekly. So I have to prioritize my time and, you know, adjust to whatever client I'm working on, which I'm sure everyone else does as well. So my day-to-day life is nice because it always looks different. Like I might be, you know, super busy the last 2 weeks of a month if it's, you know, a heavy reporting time frame, but then I might have a little bit of a slower week after because, you know, it's like how you get all your assignments in. So that's kind of how I adjusted to going from school to work. And I think an agency was a little easier in a way because I was kind of in that mindset of like balancing a lot of different responsibilities. So yeah, that's kind of.
Yeah, so I also went from like Maddie from school to work, but mine was from school to my first job and then to Fingerpaint. So just the agency environment definitely is really fast paced and super intense at times, but along with being on virtual, it can make it harder. But like Maddie said, I definitely agree. It definitely helps because we started already on Zoom. I think it would have been like a rougher transition if I was working here and then had to go fully virtually. So you kind of have that advantage too, that you'll be starting and training probably wherever you are on Zoom. So that definitely helped my transition. And in terms of like day-to-day work activity, like I said before, I'm pushing projects through. So it's just a lot of organization skills, a lot of coordination skills. I have to force myself to communicate because sometimes people are a little late with things. So, you know, you have to like ask and ask and ask, and that can be a little hard, especially in the beginning when people don't really know who you are. So just, you know, getting out of my shell in that sense was awesome. So yeah, it didn't really change with the pandemic. It was just that, you know, learning and training and starting online fully. And I do agree. I think most of you will graduate and most of you will probably start online anyway. I'm sure there will be a few exceptions, but looking at it as an advantage because that way it might be a smoother transition and companies are also preparing for that. Especially Fingerpaint, they did a great job of starting and training online. There was so many things I had to do my first week, whereas other companies might be a little slower with giving you work or incorporating you into conversations. But I felt very busy my first few weeks. So yeah, that was definitely a really huge plus with Fingerpaint. The transition's pretty easy.
And then I guess like having been in an office for a few years before going to this more virtual way of working, I think I really had to, well, and I started at Fingerpaint virtually too. So I was on video a lot to try and make those connections, put a face to the name, and being really like responsive in like our Slack groups, which is, yeah, like our way of communicating day in and day out. That's not email. And I think that really went a long way, but then also just trying to set some boundaries with myself that I felt like leaving or going and leaving an office kind of set. So, you know, having work time and then taking a break and really, you know, trying to create some more structure. I'm sure you guys might already be used to this with your class schedules and so on virtually, but that was something I personally had to do. And then also, as these guys mentioned, just being, you know, really responsive online and following up with people and keeping those lines of communication open. Because at an office, a lot of people can swing by your desk, you know, catch you in the hallway and so on. And a lot of work used to get done that way. So it's kind of like having that mentality virtually as well, being, you know, really open to other people's needs and so on.
Cool. Yes, I'll chat quickly through like my day-to-day. So as I mentioned, Search Social. So both of those are like self-service platforms where I'm the one actually going into like Google, like their ad platform, Bing, for those are the paid search engines that we use, but then also like the Facebook ad manager, Twitter ad manager, things like that. So those are like my like day-to-day. I'm constantly in those, uploading creative, managing budgets, making optimizations, things like that. But then the other like part of my job is also that collaboration that I was talking about before, with making sure that paid search and social, even though those might be small pieces of the puzzle, making sure that they like actually fit into that puzzle, and making sure that like we're aligned with all the different media programs that are running, all of our digital programs, and as well as like the creative that we put out. So that's kind of like my day-to-day. And I would say, to echo what these guys have said, I did start virtually, and I would say like the biggest transition, kind of like that Brie alluded to, was in like those internships that I had. Since they were in person, I was constantly like going to my manager's desk. They were constantly coming to my desk to like kind of have those like one-off conversations. But definitely now, like you kind of need to figure out, okay, like when do I like need to have like a face-to-face, as in like a Zoom meeting with someone to like chat through a project, what can be done like via like messaging, what can be done via email. So I would say like that's something that was like a little bit of a learning curve, especially like starting virtually, like what is the best communication avenue for everything that you might need. But I think that just like kind of comes with time, and I feel like we've all kind of adapted to that now. So I think like anybody going into the virtual world nowadays would like be able to like pick that up quickly, like what communication method to use for what scenario.
Awesome. So we have 2 more questions left, and I know we have like 15 more minutes left, so we'll try to get through these now. But then at the end, I definitely want to make sure we ask questions if you guys have anything you want to say to us. So the 5th question is, what do you like most about working for Fingerpaint, and what do you find challenging, Maddie?
So I think what I like most is the culture, which I feel like is kind of like, you hear that in a lot of places, like, oh, it's work hard, play hard. Like, I feel like that's such an easy tagline for companies. But I think one thing I do like that I feel like is very specific to Fingerpaint is that even though you're all working on one project, like for instance, Matt and I are on the same brand together, so we will put a lot of work into something and do different parts. So even though my component of the report might be finished, I'll pass it to him. I don't like, it's not like I do my part, it's done, and then I pass it to Matt, and then like I never see it again. Like a lot of the, at least in my role, a lot of the reports and assignments that I get require a lot of group effort. So everyone kind of has to play their part in order for like the report to succeed, or like the presentation to succeed. So I like the idea that everyone is kind of responsible for lifting their own weight, and that also lends itself to like learning a lot of different things. Like I've learned a lot about paid search and social from that. And then I work a lot with Google products. So Campaign Manager or Google Analytics or Data Studio. So I've learned a lot from other strategists. So even though I'm not necessarily working with certain people, I still learn. So I feel like that is one of my favorite things about working at Fingerpaint is always like learning new things that you just automatically gain exposure to just because you're all working toward the same goal. So I feel like that's one of my favorite things. And then probably one of the more challenging things is, that was the question, right?
Yes.
Okay. The challenging things is working at an agency. Like it's very different. I worked at 2 different corporations as internships when I was in college, but working at an agency is very different in the fact that you have so many different, it's like, it really does lend itself to like being in college. Like you have different types of professors, different types of like workloads. Like you might have like a lot of budget for one client, but then like a very tight budget for another. So you have to kind of manipulate that. So I think that adjustment and, knowing that it might be long hours some days, and the workload can be heavy, but it is rewarding because you are learning a ton. And I feel like one thing about having an agency as your first job is one of the better first jobs because you learn so much so fast. And then you can take all the favorite things you learned from that agency and then, move on to your next career point. So I think that, it is hard to learn a lot fast sometimes, but you grow a lot faster than maybe some of your other friends from college who might be at other companies. You're learning a lot more faster, which is great.
Yeah, so I will also say that obviously the culture and the benefits are like unbelievable here. But something more specific to Fingerpaint that I like most about working here is the opportunities for growth. So obviously I'm entry level now, I just graduated, but you don't want to stay entry level, and it's important to look at wherever you go to see, you know, who's getting promoted, how fast, and the turnover rate and everything. So Fingerpaint has great stats with that. And, you know, you don't have to wait for your manager and his manager's manager to get promoted. You can get promoted if you hit certain skills, and they lay that out for you. So right now I'm, you know, the lowest project manager role that you can get, but I know exactly what skills I need to hit to get to the second level. So I think that's really important, especially because it can feel, you know, it's hard when you feel stagnant in a role because you don't really know how to move up. You know, unless someone leaves and then people just get promoted through the line. And it's not like that here. You are promoted for your skills if you hit them, and they do lay them out for you, which is awesome. And then the most challenging, I would say exactly what Maddie said, the pharmaceutical agency environment is really intense and really difficult. But like she said, the flip side of that coin is that you grow a lot faster. So work hard, play hard is definitely, you know, alive and well here.
Yeah, and just super quickly, I think, again, my favorite part is the culture and the camaraderie. I think we all joke with each other a lot, which is really fun throughout the day and keeps things light, given the intensity of, you know, being client facing, having a lot of deliverables week to week. So I think everybody knows how to keep things fun. But yeah, the most challenging part, I think, especially from a media side of things, is keeping up with all the industry trends and so on. It's just such a fast-paced environment, which is also a part of, I think, why I've been in pharmaceutical marketing though for so long. Not so long, but you know what I mean.
Feels so long.
It's just, yeah, that fast-paced environment. Every single day when I come in, I think I have a plan and it completely changes. And even though, you know, that isn't ideal sometimes, I think it is what I like about being in an agency, is, you know, having to pivot and having to be reactive and so on. And yeah.
Yes, I would agree with Bree that I think probably one of my favorite parts of being a Fingerpaint is the people that I work with. I like know from my internships that I was always like super scared to like even like talk to my manager about something, let alone like the people above him. But I think at Fingerpaint, I've never met anybody that's like not approachable or like I'm scared of. Everyone is super open to like have conversations with you. It's also nice now like coming in the office and meeting those people that you haven't met before. And I think that like that's kind of like helped make the transition into like the first career really easy. It's just the people around me being approachable. I'm like never scared to go to my manager or like anybody else if I have questions or I don't feel like I like need like, or if like I need help with something. So I think that that's like probably my favorite part is just all of the people and the collaboration that it takes to really put things out the door. I think that that's something that's really exciting about Fingerpaint and being at an agency. I would say the most challenging thing is not like necessarily specific to Fingerpaint, but just like my first role after college in general. I mean, classes and internships can only prepare you so much. Like your first full-time role is really different, and it really does have like that learning curve in the beginning. But definitely like being open to that learning curve and like knowing that that's coming is like you like really need to have that open mind. So I think that that's something that was challenging like over like my first couple months, but definitely as time goes on, I've gotten more comfortable with like my skill set and like what I've learned at Fingerpaint. So yeah, definitely like being open in those first couple months will really help you be successful later on.
Okay, awesome. So Danielle, I know we only have 8 minutes left, so I feel like it's probably a good time to open it out to students. If anyone has a question, that way we just make sure, or we can, you know, make sure that we have enough time to answer anyone's questions.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you to all the panelists. That was really interesting and valuable information. So yeah, if anyone has any questions, please put them in the chat box. I have a couple that came directly to me. So I'm going to direct the first one to Emma, because you had mentioned, Emma, about skills and how you really feel like the organization sets you up for success in knowing what skills are needed. Can you talk about what those skills are that the company looks for in a new hire and then to be promoted?
Yeah, sure. So for project management specific for my department, I remember, I think it was like Gigi, I was on a phone call and I was like, I'm a really OCD, like type A personality. And she was like, that's exactly what we need for project managers. So I think for my department specifically, someone who's obviously super organized, super on top of everything, likes to have their hands in a bunch of different buckets. So making sure that, you know, you're able and you're comfortable to coordinate with people and communicate with people. And that's specific to project management, but I will say just as a whole that, you know, I was in food marketing and I had not one internship, not anything like involved with pharmaceuticals. So they do look at the whole person. I had a lot of internships. I had obviously the 3 co-ops, but I also had 3 other part-time internships. So, you know, making them see that I really did fill my time at St. Joe's with a lot of work experience. So they do look at the whole person, and it's also, you know, having that rapport with your manager, because I did interview with, you know, the people in culture, HR, and then they have you interview with your manager, your prospective managers, and just, you know, getting off on the right foot and, you know, being professional, obviously, but also being personable. We're a very people first company, you know, and that's down to this or up to the CEO. So that really trickles down, and every single person here is excited to be here, even though it is very intense at times. So just definitely proving to them and telling them in your interview process that you do work hard, play hard, because like I said, I was in food marketing, but they saw that I had, you know, similar values as finger painters. So they were willing to give me that opportunity, even though it definitely came with, you know, a big learning curve, because I knew no pharma lingo at all. So I would just say, you know, knowing specific to your department, knowing the skills that they need for, you know, that role to succeed, and also just Fingerpaint as a whole, just seeing what kind of values we have and looking on their website, and seeing if you align with that, and, you know, proving that through your resume and your interview process.
Can I just
Thanks,
add
Emma. Oh, sorry, go ahead, Matt.
So I just wanted to echo the point that, like, I was gonna say St. Joe's, but I mean, Fingerpaint is very willing to hire people right out of college, which I think is something that was super beneficial to me, because obviously I had 0 paid search experience from my internships. I had zero social media experience, but like making those connections during that interview process, like they were willing to like take that chance on me, even though I like didn't have like those like actual skills. They like saw like that, like I was willing to learn those skills. So I think that that's something that's unique about Fingerpaint, because you'll definitely run into those companies where it's like you need at least 1 to 2 years experience in paid search in order to have this role, but Fingerpaint is willing to like teach you those skills and like help you learn like right out of college. I mean, 3 of us here, like this is like one of our first roles out of college.
Yeah, that's a great point. I think a lot of students are deterred by those job descriptions that say there's 1 to 2 years required, and it's really difficult to get that experience. So that's great to know. Question for you, Gigi. You mentioned the summer internship program. Which departments, and there's a number of departments that you hire into, do you hire interns for all of those departments, or are the internships specific to certain departments, if that makes sense?
Yeah, no, we're hiring across the board. So
Okay.
we'll have at least 1 intern in each department, if not more.
And is there an entry level program as far as having a cohort of new hires come in, or is it where you hire as needed?
That has been in talks, but right now we have the internship program, and then if there are entry-level roles open at that time, obviously your foot is in the door, so it's a great opportunity to be able to apply to those roles. But you know, it just, whatever role is open at the time, it's just on a specific basis.
Okay, thanks for clarifying. And then I just want to go back, if there's no other questions, I don't see any more in the chat, to the panelists, and ask if each of you can answer that last question about just offering advice to students who are interested in working for Fingerpaint.
Yeah, I was gonna say one thing, just to go back to like the whole cohort thing, like even though we don't have, I know some companies have like a freshman class of like people that come in, like I mean, when we were hired, they didn't have that, but we were all assigned like a buddy that was someone either on our team or on a similar role that like taught you everything you needed to know, like walking in the door, like all of the very basic things. So even though you don't have like classmates, like you still do have like a person to work with.
That's great. That's super helpful to have a mentor and, you know, not feel like you're alone, right off the bat. So yeah, if you guys can just kind of go around, any last advice that you would offer to students?
So I would say specifically for Fingerpaint, you don't need pharmaceutical experience. Like Emma said, you learn a lot of it on the fly. And at least in my role and an analyst role, like I don't have a lot of work with like, you know, specific terms or like science, like science things. Like I wasn't really anything interested in that while I was in college, but I learned it on the fly at my job. So you don't need to be like a pharma marketing major to get a job here. Like, as you heard, we were all different majors. So as long as you're determined to learn your job, then you're good. So I would say just have a good energy going into the job.
And just from my experience, if there is no job opening for you, like right away, I would just definitely like keep in touch if you're really interested about the company, because there will be, especially like Fingerpaint, it's such a fast growing company. I think we've hired like just so many people during the pandemic that if they all came in the office, there wouldn't be a seat for every single person. So if there's not a job opening now, there definitely will be. And you know, and keep at it and email anyone that you feel, you know, could get you that job, or message them on LinkedIn, or, you know, obviously make those quality connections, but don't be like upset if there's not a job right now, because I had to wait like 3 or 4 more months until there was one for me. So just keep at it.
Yeah, and I really liked what Matt said earlier about, you know, not needing to have exact experience with, you know, what you're applying for. It's kind of like play up your strengths within your resume. Like a clean, organized resume does go a long way, but just because you don't have direct experience doesn't mean you can't answer the questions during the interview to show that you're, you know, well thought out, organized, and so on. I think that's really what goes a long way. So I just kind of wanted to emphasize what Matt said, because I think that's really what we look for, is just, you know, that kind of organizational thought, personality, and so on. And I think it'll go a long way.
Yeah, I would just say my like one piece of advice would be to just like keep an open mind like as you're graduating college, because as I had mentioned earlier, like I didn't know exactly what industry or like what skill I like wanted to go into, but like where I ended up, I'm like really happy where I am. So just keep your options open, make sure you're reaching out to those people in your network. You can like reach out to any of us or Gigi if you have like any more questions, but definitely like be willing to ask those questions, and like that'll help you end up where you are like meant to be. Yeah.
Perfect. Any last words, Gigi? And then I'll pass it back to Brianna.
Yes, I actually, in the chat, I just put our Fingerpaint website, my email address, and my LinkedIn account if anyone wants to connect, as I will be posting the summer internship opportunities on LinkedIn, and they will be on the website as well. So feel free to stay up to date with that. I guess some closing statements, really just echoing what the team said. I think that especially coming right out of college, we don't expect everyone to know everything right off the bat. We are willing to invest in our people and kind of train them up. And, you know, all we're looking for really is like a passion or even just a curiosity about the healthcare advertising world. It is very different than general consumer advertising. It's such a niche market. There are a lot of heavy sciences and heavy creatives in the same place. And I think it's just such a unique environment. And even myself in the recruiting department, I am encouraged to be creative in everything that I do. And I think that echoes throughout the company. So we're just looking for someone who's ready to roll up their sleeves and get going. And we don't expect you to know everything, but we are excited that you are excited.
All right, thank you guys for attending today's webinar. We hope you enjoyed hearing from us and a little bit about our experience at Fingerpaint. we'd like to take the opportunity to thank you guys for joining, and it's truly invaluable. So we hope you have a wonderful afternoon and feel more confident going into the workforce come graduation.